Good morning. Welcome to the April 2019 edition of Total Health Talks. I'm Dr. John Steitler here with Total Health Guidance, and we are going to be talking about diabetes. We're talking about natural ways to cure diabetes, prevent diabetes, manage your diabetes. So if you know anybody who is diabetic or pre-diabetic, this would be a great talk for them to listen to. Again, I'm Dr. John Steitler. I'm a doctor of naturopathic psychology, and along with me we have...
My name's Coven. I'm one of the acupuncture physicians here at Total Health Guidance.
And I'm Tony Ambush, the massage therapist and health coach.
Okay. And to kind of kick us off, Coven, why don't you talk more about just what diabetes is and give us an overview?
Right. So there's two types of diabetes. Diabetes type 1, or sometimes it's called childhood onset, and diabetes type 2, which is adult onset. However, because of the prevalence, the name that they usually go by is type 1 and 2, because now children are also developing type 2 diabetes. But type 1 diabetes is actually an autoimmune disease that your immune system is attacking the cells in your pancreas that are creating insulin. So your body isn't actually creating insulin. Whereas type 2 diabetes, it happens over a period of time where the blood sugar levels are so high in your body that your body's not either creating enough insulin or your body's not using the insulin properly. So the blood sugar remains in your blood and it doesn't actually transition into your cells. So for the sake of today's discussion, we're going to be parking out mostly on type 2 diabetes and how to prevent type 2 diabetes, as well as manage it if you've already been given that diagnosis. The physical manifestations of type 2 diabetes can kind of be summarized as a chronic, rampant, high blood sugar. And so as you look through the symptoms of diabetes type 2, we actually see how sugars are attacking different systems in the body. For example, one of the systems it attacks is the nerves, and that can impact neuropathy, so feeling of sensations or lack of sensations in your extremities. A lot of diabetics have tingling pain or numbness in their feet. Some people have it in their hands. As well as it can affect the eyes. You can have blurry vision, or you can go actually blind if it remains uncared for. And yeah, anytime there's inflammation in the body, and inflammation can be from high blood sugars, there will also likely be pain. So that's another kind of physical manifestation of type 2 diabetes. But we wanted to kind of dive into some of the typical treatment approaches. And I looked on a couple different Western kind of websites. And usually the typical treatment protocol is lose weight, manage your diet, and then insulin or metformin. And so, but as I was looking through Western approaches to losing weight and changing your diet, there wasn't a lot of encouragement or guidance in that direction. And so for our discussion today, we need to take a different look at how type 2 diabetes is approached, kind of like a holistic review, because there are physical ways. Yeah, losing weight is a reality, changing your diet is a reality, can help with the blood sugar levels a lot, but we need some better next steps for that for sure. But in addition to the physical sides of type 2 diabetes, there's some mental components as well that can kind of impact how you respond to being labeled as a diabetic. Or even a pre-diabetic. That can be really scary. Yeah,
it's a major lifestyle change. So whenever you have any kind of intense lifestyle change, there can be an adjustment disorder. That's actually a clinical term, adjustment disorder. That's a diagnosis. But it can just add a lot of stress. If you go to the doctor and he says, oh, you're pre-diabetic, or he labels you as diabetic and says you're going to need insulin or some prescription drug, and talking about those physical manifestations that you just mentioned, that can be pretty shocking. It can be pretty challenging. So whenever you get any kind of chronic medical diagnosis or awareness like that, it's always important to reach out for some help. There's no shortage of support out there. It's so different than it was 20, 30, 50 years ago. There's no excuses for not reaching out. There's all kinds of support groups. We encourage people to put together a self-care plan. There's a chart that I use that just has we talk about physical and emotional and relational and spiritual self-care. Whenever you're going through a change like this, a change in lifestyle, it's important to make sure that you have somebody in a support system to help you through how do you manage your self-care. And with adjustment disorders, if it becomes severe enough to where, oh my gosh, I can have a depression along with a diagnosis. I can have anxiety. Some people get a diagnosis like this and they start panicking, like they start having food panics, like what should I eat now? Can I eat this? Do I have to measure this and count this? And it can be really anxiety producing, even potentially causing panic-like symptoms. So if you have a diagnosis and you're starting to feel some depression or anxiety, it is important to reach out to a mental health professional to walk you through some of those steps of self-care and just a self-care plan. Usually that's short-lived, it's very easily treatable, it's not something that's long-term, doesn't require medication, just some basic life skills can help you through that, the mental side. So let's talk about it from, you mentioned that the research you did from a Western perspective. What about from an Eastern perspective?
Right. So acupuncture actually has a pretty amazing impact with diabetes type 2. It can help with the regulation of blood sugar levels. It also, there's a really awesome treatment that I enjoy doing with people. It's a sugar cravings treatment. And even people who don't have diabetes or aren't pre-diabetic like this treatment, because we all try to curb our sugars and sometimes it can be difficult. So that treatment works pretty well to help kind of satiate some of those sugar cravings. And then the other really helpful thing that acupuncture can do for diabetics is if you're dealing with neuropathy. The thing with neuropathy as it relates to diabetes is you want to prevent it before there's actually damage to the nerves. Or if there is already damage to the nerves, you want to prevent further damage to the nerves. So really regulating the blood sugar levels is important, but then also working with the nervous system to kind of stimulate healthy function in the extremities is really helpful, and acupuncture can help to do that.
Awesome. Well, referring back to kind of the Western side, the nutritional side, I want to just talk a little bit about from a nutritional standpoint. One of the things you mentioned about the sugar cravings, and one of the worst types of sugars, I'm not picking on this particular brand, but liquid sugars in general are probably the worst because it's such a high concentration of sugar. So any kind of soda, if I look at, this is Coke, but if you had Pepsi or any other type of soda, in this 20-ounce bottle of soda, you want to, if I had to ask people to guess how many teaspoons of sugar are in this, most people would say, 3, 5, 7, 10, but there's actually 17 teaspoons of sugar in this bottle of soda. Now, if you imagine, going to somebody's house for dinner and they're serving unsweetened iced tea, and you watch me put 17 teaspoons of sugar, like, oh my gosh, that make my teeth hurt thinking about it. But every time we drink a soda or a sweet tea or even fruit juice, is still very, all the liquid sugars has a huge spike in your blood sugar. I call this diabetes in a bottle. And that's probably the first thing to prevent, or certainly if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, we need to eliminate the liquid sugars. And then in general, carbs. When you think about carbs, simple carbs or what are carbs, sometimes it's easy to understand, sometimes it's a little more complicated. We don't want to hear a lot about different diets right now, like keto and South Beach and Atkins and so forth. We're not talking about a no-carb diet. We need carbohydrates. It's a functional that everybody needs some carbohydrates. It's a matter of what types of carbs and how many carbs. I want to just give a simple illustration about reading food labels. If you look at any food, in this case it's almonds, but on the nutrition facts label, it'll say total carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are made up of really two primary things. Fiber, which is good. Fiber scrapes your arteries, it slows down the spike in your blood sugar. And then sugars. Sugars are obviously what causes the spike, and so we need to regulate that. So when we look at something that says total carbs, in this case almonds, total carbs is 6 grams. But the fiber, the dietary fiber, is 3 grams. So if we take the total carbs minus the fiber, what's left is what I'm calling, the simple carb. I call it net carbs. Some people call it digestible carbs, or there's different analogies that you can use. If you want more information on this, there's a video on the Total Health Guidance YouTube channel called the fireplace analogy. I'd highly encourage you to take a look at that if you want more information on what this looks like. But just a simple rule of thumb, if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic or just really wanting to prevent it to begin with, any kind of snack or food that you're eating, if you look at the total carbs minus the fiber, that's your net carbs, a good snack would be something that has more protein than net carbs. So in this case, the nuts have 6 grams of carbs, 3 of which are fiber, so it's got 3 grams of net carbs, but it's got 6 grams of protein. So almonds would be a great snack, as opposed to the soda that has 65 grams of carbs, no fiber, so it's all net carbs and no protein. So you got a huge spike in your blood sugar. One product that I really like is a shake mix. It's a protein, basically it's a healthy drink mix called Complete. And this is gluten-free, it's dairy, it's very low glycemic, it's a vegan protein. But if you look at it, it's got 20 grams of carbs. And you might think, wow, that seems so high at 20 grams, but 8 of them are fiber. So it only has 12 grams of net carbs. And again, it has more protein. It's got 13 grams of protein. So anything that has more protein than the net carbs, that's going to have a slow, anything with carb, you're going to see a spike in your blood sugar, but it's going to be a leveled increase. We need sugar in our blood. We need blood sugar for energy and for motivation. What we want to avoid is the spike and the crash. When we eat a candy bar or a soda, we get the huge high glycemic spike and then the crash. So this could be something either as a meal replacement or as a snack between meals to help regulate. You want the slow regulation of your blood sugar.
Just to kind of tack on that really quick, that spike, a lot of people with type 2 diabetes experience a lot of headaches or foggy thinking, and that's a result of that spike up and down. And so when you're kind of living in this extremes of up and down, those headaches are going to be really seemingly unmanageable. But the more you're able to get to regulate your blood sugars where they're rising at a slower pace and they're staying steady a little bit better, the more those headaches will be manageable. And you can kind of regain some level of thinking and normality to your head space.
One of the things we like to do here with clients that are either pre-diabetic or diabetic is we create customized food plans because we want to make this sustainable. If you just go into the internet and I got diagnosed with this, what do I do? It can cause a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, anxiety because I don't like these certain foods or this is a total change. So what we do is we help people, we want to make it sustainable. We look at what you're currently eating and we want to make incremental changes using the foods that you like, that you enjoy, and then just talking about tweaks and adjustments to make it long-term and sustainable, which kind of goes into lifestyle. And Tony, do you want to talk just more about, from a lifestyle standpoint, some of the things we can do to manage your diabetes?
Well, I'm going to talk specifically about how massage can help with diabetes and what you'd want to look for in a practitioner that was going to support you with your diabetic issues and massage. So primarily the main function for massage is going to be to help with blood circulation, and that is going to help reduce the effects that diabetes can have on the body, such as hardening of arteries. So you just want something that really helps to improve the flexibility of the tissue and also joint mobility. Inactivity is always a problem as well associated with that, so any type of exercise is really good. Anything that can support weight loss, as we've been talking about nutrition and diet, we want to, if you're overweight or close to overweight, losing weight is always going to be helpful when dealing with and managing diabetes. It's also going to help with your ability to be more mobile and to exercise more to improve your health in general. So we have to work our muscles. We don't have to go into the gym every day or 5 days a week or 7 days a week, but walking 20 minutes a day could be the start down the road to some healthier decisions. If you are going to go to a massage therapist, I would recommend just making sure, or they should rather, the therapist should inquire about your last dosage, where you were within your limits for your, or whether you're in the correct level and within your limits. And then they're going to need to check pressure more often with anybody that's dealing with diabetes, specifically if they have any issues with neuropathy. They may not be able to identify clearly what level of pressure is being applied, so we always want to be careful of that. You just want to make sure that therapist has some idea that you are diabetic. It's really important to let them know, because how they're going to manage the massage would be very different. Most often it's going to be a very light massage, something just very relaxing. Of course, there are other ways to do deep tissue work without it being deep tissue, so there are considerations that can help support any real therapeutic need for massage, but also the other part would be just make sure that your massage therapist knows that you're dealing with diabetic issues so they can make adjustments in the massage for you. And lastly, I'll just mention a couple of additional nutritional things that can help. I use essential oils usually externally on the body to help with massage, but there are also a couple things you can do internally. Cinnamon bark oil is a really good oil that you could use to help regulate blood sugar, and cinnamon in general, I think, is another spice that you can put on anything. It tastes really good.
Everything.
Everything, right? To help. And then there's also a blend, proprietary blend called Slim and Sassy, and that's basically for helping to boost the metabolism, and that can just help reduce cravings for sugar, which, as we talked, sugar's in our soda, it's in our bread, it's in our crackers, it's in so many things. So those tools would be good things to add to your regimen to help support your nutritional health while you're working on the other avenues of your health, physically and mentally as well.
The cinnamon is great in the complete. I had a vanilla complete shake yesterday with just the vanilla complete, and I just dumped a bunch of cinnamon in it, shake it up. It is really good. It's good with the chocolate too, but I really like it with the vanilla.
Yeah, that's good. One other thing I'd tack on what you're saying is adding some regularity to when you're eating. And so diabetes is a metabolic disorder, and so it's attacking your metabolism. Something that helps to regulate your metabolism, and this will also help with the headaches that often accompany that spike in blood sugar, is having a normal time when you eat. And if you are having to take insulin, then having those be really regulated times as well, so that you can kind of steady those blood sugar levels instead of, again, living in that spike up and down, which can cause a lot of discomfort in just being in your body and in your head.
Going along with that too, with with how much you eat, your portion size, and the regularity of your meals. Ideally, I know this is a challenge for some people, but ideally what we'd recommend for people with diabetes is, rather than eating 3 large meals, is having some smaller meals, whether that's breakfast, morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, or having 5 smaller meals, but limiting the amount of food in one setting is going to increase your blood sugar. So having smaller meals throughout the day and at consistent times, we recommend that you eat something within 30 minutes or so of waking up, just to jumpstart your metabolism. Again, something that's balanced, something that's protein, it's not all carbs, but has a balance of fiber and protein with it. So having a fruit or a vegetable at every meal is something that, again, helps because of the fiber. Fiber is only found in fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. So the more fiber, the more regularity you're going to have, not just physically regularity, but regularity in your blood sugar as well. Any final closing comments from anybody else before we wrap up this edition?
Could you actually did we talk a little bit about pre-diabetic and what that means? And I think people assume that if they are diagnosed as a pre-diabetic that they're inevitably going to become diabetic. So speak to that a little bit.
Well, so pre-diabetic is just that your blood sugar levels are pretty high. Not quite diagnosably diabetic yet, but almost there. Now, that's not a death sentence diagnosis. It's it's like the check engine light of your body. Like, you might want to start regulating this or reducing it. And you can be doing any of the things that we were talking about as treatment for diabetes to treat the pre-diabetes and prevent the actual diagnosis of diabetes. So does that kind of...
And I think it's so critical that you do that, especially if you just start, whether your doctor says, hey, you're pre-diabetic, or your blood sugar numbers, you're just seeing an increase, maybe they're not even labeling you pre-diabetic yet. It's so important to jump on that, because the bad news is, once you are labeled diabetic, once your doctor has written you a prescription for metformin or some other prescription, you are now labeled a diabetic for the rest of your life. So when it comes to your life insurance rates, your health insurance rates, it can really have a negative impact. Even though you may be able to reverse the diabetes, you may be able to get your blood sugar under control, but once you've had that prescription, from an insurance world and from the government standpoints, you're considered a diabetic. So we really want to try to jump on, if you see those numbers increasing, right, jump on these things right away. Get some help, get some support. Don't wait until you're dependent on medication. Obviously, the physical symptoms can be severe. You're talking about potential blindness, loss of
Blindness,
limbs,
neuropathy.
you know,
Yeah, these are
being on
extreme.
dialysis.
Yeah.
So,
One more question. I have a question online. Someone, obviously the soda thing came up, and someone was like, "Wow, I drink a lot of Coke every day." So then someone mentioned that an alternative could be seltzer water. Do you have any ideas? Maybe I thought introducing an essential oil like lemon or peppermint in your water. There's no sugar. It's just the oil in the water. It adds that flavor. I know a lot of the flavored waters actually have some chemical or some lemon from wherever, and there's also sugar. Even the flavored waters have some sugar. So if you guys want to talk about some alternatives, maybe teas or something that you know that would be more beneficial, that could still have a good taste for people to consume and want to take or drink.
If you like, some people love the carbonation. They really like that's the drive for the soda. So something like a LaCroix. LaCroix is a carbonated flavored water, but it has natural flavorings in it and doesn't have any sugar. So that's one option. It's not going to be sweet because there's no sugar in it. That's an option. Some people just want the sweetness. So something like a Sobe Life Water. It has a little gecko on it. The ones with the clear caps, it'll say right on the top, it'll say 0 calories, no artificial sweeteners. Because some people think, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'll just go to Diet Coke. And Diet Coke, diet sodas, as horrible as this is for you, I'd rather you drink this than a Diet Coke. And I'm certainly not recommending that you drink soda, but diet sodas are even worse. And we don't have time to go into all the benefits, not specifically for diabetes, but a whole host of neurological and other issues. People actually gain more weight, and we can talk about that another time on diet sodas. But like a Sobe Life Water is one of the flavored waters that doesn't have artificial chemicals or artificial sweeteners. I like Tony's suggestion. That's what I use. I use water, and then I put a drop of lemon or lime. Make sure you're not just using an aromatherapy oil offline or off Walmart or something, because most of those are chemicals. We only use therapeutic, like the certified therapeutic grade. These are oils that you can take internally. So yeah, be careful which oils you're using.
Yeah.
Other suggestions?
Just make sure there's not a filler oil. That's what you want to look for. The filler oil could be something you shouldn't ingest. So as John said, be careful for that.
The only other thing I would add is you can have teas, as long as they're not caffeinated, the liquid goes towards your water count for the day. And you should be doing half of your body weight in ounces, okay? So if you're ounces of water, yeah.
Okay.
Or liquid that's not caffeinated. So coffee, black tea, green tea, they do not count as your water count. So drinking 5 cups of coffee doesn't mean you've reached your
herbal
goal.
teas like chamomile tea or things like that, those would be great.
Those are doable.
Yep.
And if you are kind of having a difficult time with that sugar transition, you can put honey or another natural kind of sweetener to it, and then just slowly start reducing it. It might be hard for you to be going from like a name brand sweet tea that's used with like 17 teaspoons of sugar straight to regular tea with no sugar. That would be really hard even for me. And so you want to just kind of start lowering the amount a little bit and work yourself too. Like maybe just a little bit of honey or maybe none.
So that was what I was going to say next. The question was, let's address what it's like. Because are we going to have withdrawal symptoms if we stop sugar?
For sure.
So one of the things we're talking about is replacing, like Hovind said, adding something good to it to help reduce. So can you guys maybe just a little bit about that? We have about 3 or 4 minutes left about the mental connection with something like giving up sugar, giving up soda, something we really like, we're used to as part of our routine, how we deal with what the replacements are. I think you covered some of that. Maybe if you want to expand a little more. And then John, if you want to talk about what it does mentally, how we can prepare for that mentally and what we should do, try to quit cold turkey as compared to maybe downgrading like Hovind said.
I'll use one example. I had a client that she came in. She was obese. She had severe headaches. She was going. She got diagnosed. She thought she had a brain tumor. They did a CAT scan. She was going in for an MRI. All kinds of physical issues. And I found out she was drinking like 8 to 10 sodas a day, between diet sodas and regular sodas. So what I encourage her to do to start with, that's a lot, is I said, okay, force yourself to drink 1 bottle of water between every soda. And she put a drop of the oil in between, and she weaned off, over the course of about just 2 or 3 weeks, she weaned off using the slim sassy oil that Tony mentioned is a great way because that reduces their cravings for the sugar. And she was able to wean off all of a sudden her headaches went away. She didn't need the MRI. She didn't have a brain tumor. It was all the chemical side effects
Right.
from the soda and the diet sodas.
Wow, that's a great example story. The only thing that I can think of, and this might go along with the mental side of it too, is if you have been diagnosed, or even if you haven't been diagnosed, but you finally realize, okay, this is something that I need to prioritize in my life. You need to kind of have that mental shift of, okay, I'm choosing to do this. I don't have to do this. And so when you're approaching food, there can be a certain level of joy. And I think anytime you work with any food changes, in order to avoid a very restricted diet, which can be really intense on the mind, as well as the body, because it kind of seems like, wow, there's no fun to eating anymore, or what am I going to eat when everybody goes out, or how can I not drink my coffee with a bunch of cream and sugar in the morning? What am I going to do? I'm not going to be awake enough, and all these other things that our minds might run to. Is, like Tony said, find a replacement. Find something that's just maybe a little bit healthier, that kind of fulfills that need for whatever that food is filling for your life. So if it's like your morning coffee, find a substitute. Maybe try honey in your coffee, or another sweetener. Maybe try almond milk instead of dairy, or just try to make those changes they don't need to be massive sometimes. They can just be minimal, as you slowly start working towards a healthier lifestyle.
I echo that so much, because you'll oftentimes hear people say, oh, I can't eat anything, everything that tastes good is bad for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's so not true. There are so many great foods, and that's why when we customize food plans, we want to make sure things are, it can be joy, it can be fun. I love, like this morning, my breakfast was, I took the chocolate complete shake, I took a scoop of all natural peanut butter with some almond milk. It tastes like a Reese's peanut butter cup. I mean, it's for breakfast, but I had a healthy, low glycemic, vegetarian, good fiber breakfast that tasted great. So you don't have to give up on all these good foods. And we have we actually, when we do customized food plans, we actually go to the restaurants we ask people what restaurants to eat at, and we go to the menus and we talk about, hey, when you go to these restaurants, even if it's what we don't think of as healthy restaurants, there's almost always something you can get. And we put together the recommendations and suggestions of things you can get in healthy restaurants.
That's awesome.
Any other questions online?
No, we're just discussing some information about doTERRA. So there's some information on what oils you can find. Again, any oil that's a pure grade oil. That just be careful of the fillers. I put a post or a link to give you some information about where you can go and look. Some of the best ones for flavoring are any of the citrus oils. The cinnamon is good for flavoring. The benefit of these is that not only do you get the flavor, you get the benefit of the oil and the properties it can bring into cinnamon helping regulate your blood sugar. Lemon and the citrus oils are very cleansing and actually kind of lightening of the body, helping balancing your system. And you don't get what you don't get are the chemical flavorings, the chemical colorings, the artificial sugars and the real sugars that eliminate salt. You still get the flavor and get the benefits of having your water intake, which we clearly need, improving that, having a flavored water that is actually beneficial to us as opposed to drinking something that really is more chemical than water probably. So there are a couple things. If you want to get more information, I do have a handout just kind of to help you along and give you some information about diabetes, maybe make some choices. As I think we discussed here, you don't have to do it all at once. If you can even make one choice or two choices, one a week, and in 3 weeks you have 3 new things that you're adding to your regimen to help reduce your potential for diabetes, would be amazing. So if you want to be a part or added to our Facebook group that's specifically for the Total Health Talks, send a message on Facebook. I'll follow up and get that document to you, or just any comments and I'll follow up with you later today. If you have any other questions as well, you can always hit us up on Facebook, or you can call us at the office anytime.
Well, this is going to wrap up this edition of Total Health Talks. Next month, remember, our Total Health Talks are always on the second Saturday of every month, 10 a.m. Here at Facebook Live. Our next talk is going to be on caregivers. So if you know somebody that is caring for an elderly parent, maybe they're a nurse, or maybe they're in the caring industry, any kind of a caregiver, we're going to be talking about a holistic approach to managing self-care for the caregiver. Again, that'll be the second Saturday in May, the same time, 10 a.m. Thank you for joining us, and follow up with any questions.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Moms, next month we can